A show focusing on berries coming up right after this. During my years as a garden designer, I've enjoyed helping homeowners create private sanctuaries full of beauty and wonder. I find each garden to be a fresh opportunity to explore and create uniquely personal spaces. These are just a few of the gardens I've helped transform into garden homes. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to The Garden Home, a show about design and blurring the lines between inside and out. Now, in today's show, we're going to focus on one of my favorite topics. That's berries. Lots of big, beautiful berries. We're going to visit a strawberry farm and a blueberry farm to get a few tips on growing these delicious summer favorites. We'll also create together this blueberry container and check out the raspberries I have growing at the farm. Plus, I'll show you how to choose the right variety of blueberry for your garden. Well, as you can see, we have a lot to cover in today's show, so let's get started. Let's head up to the garden where I can show you some of the blackberries I planted last year. I just can't believe how many blackberries these vines are producing. When we planted these a couple of years ago, I really had no idea they were going to be this bountiful. This variety is called Washita. It's an American Indian series of blackberry varieties that was produced in the late 1980s by the University of Arkansas. And there's some outstanding varieties in this series. Once they started growing, it was time to start thinking about what kind of support we were going to give them. So later in that year, in the summer, we set posts along the rows and then ran 3 wires so that we could weave the vines of the blackberries in through them to keep them off the ground. And you can see it's working very well. Now, we planted several different varieties, not just this thornless Washita. We also planted Arapaho and one called Chickasaw that does have thorns. Now, realize you don't have to plant this many blackberries to be able to enjoy them in your home garden. With this much fruit production on just a few vines, well, you can see how many berries you can produce in a limited space. Now, if you love strawberries but don't have enough space to grow the amount you need, try going to a strawberry farm and picking your own. Bud Mearg tells us about the way he works with a pick-your-own strawberry farm.
I'm here to pick up some strawberries out of the field to take to the stands to sell berries today. I've known Larry for, I guess, probably about 40 years. I retired like 3 years ago. Got to talking with Larry, and so Larry asked me if I'd be interested in helping him with some sales, and I said, yeah, sure. Well, first off, I'd have to say I think Larry's philosophy is to grow the best strawberry in the world. I think he feels that he's doing his community a service by providing strawberries that you can only get a strawberry like this naturally when it's seasonal, but one time a year, locally grown. Got to have some Holland bottom strawberries.
Larry, these are such beautiful berries. My gosh.
The berries are very good this year, okay? We're at the peak of our season, and we've got some real good weather right now. So the berries are really, really pretty today.
Well, you said that this wasn't as big a year as some years, but gosh, just look at all of it. It looks like a bumper crop to me.
Well, what you just don't see is a lot of our plants are small daughter plants last fall, and they're just not producing as much fruit as they normally do.
Is that because of the weather?
Well, it was because we just got a lot of small plants. Where we grew them, where they are grown, had a growing season. It was very cold and short, and so consequently we got a lot of small plants that just didn't produce a lot of blooms last fall.
Well, tell me a little bit in terms of homework. You know, if you're going to start a new plant, I know that you've got you got the mother plant and first and second generation. If you were going to take one of those and root it, say somebody wanted to root some strawberries at home, what would they do?
There's 2 ways to generate new plants for next year. One is bare tip, which is one I just pulled off. Okay, it has no roots on it. And you can take that and put it in potting soil with a micro mister that comes on every few minutes.
Now, keeps it constantly moist.
Keeps it constantly moist. And it has enough energy in it to put down roots and start growing and becomes a sustainable plant. That is called plug plant growing.
And you would plant those in the fall here?
These are planted in first few days of October. That is what we call the planting window, from about the 5th of October to the 20th of October. And all your planting, whether you use this kind of plant or a bare root, semi-dormant plant like we grow, has to be planted in that 2-week planting window, or you can just get your clock cleaned.
And with regard to timing, once the berries begin to ripen, you've got to get them out of the field.
You have to pick these things on a continual basis from the time we start until the time season is over.
And that span of time here is about 6 weeks?
Normally about 40 to 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I see.
we have picked as high as 62 days before, but that's very, very unusual. But we do shoot for about 40 to 50 days a year.
Well, it's a wonderful time of year, and lots of people look forward to it for obvious reasons.
Oh yes, I'm one of the most popular people in the world during strawberry season, and after that they don't want to see me much.
This past summer, I visited an organic blueberry farm and talked to the grower, Donald Watkins. He shared some tips with me about how he cares for these really extra large and old blueberry plants and how homeowners can do the same, but on a smaller level. Don, it looks like we've got some enthusiastic berry pickers out here today.
Yes, we do. Quite a few of them. We usually get quite a few when the berries start getting ripe like this.
Yeah, well, they're doing a great job. I'm seeing some of these little boxes filling up. Yeah, that's a beauty there,
yeah,
isn't it?
There's a lot of good sized ones too.
Now, how long have these been here? Because these are really sizable plants, Don.
Well, as far as I know, they've been here about 18 years.
Yeah.
And of course, every once in a while, we do have to cut them back because they get so tall that people can't get up to get to them.
But, you know, Don, I've found that blueberries are pretty easy to take care of.
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, we do very little to these here. We don't do any spraying at all as far as chemicals, any insecticides or.
It's got to make your customers happy.
Oh yes, it does. Yeah, they usually ask when they call, if we use insecticides, and of course we don't. We tell them no.
Well, it's such a healthy fruit. Why would you poison it?
That's right. That's right. They're a great fruit, really good for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what about fertilizing? And because they all look so healthy, and they they're colossal plants. They're so big.
Well, we don't do any fertilizing either. I mean, they just for the last 8 years. I haven't done anything. Now, the gentleman that was here before me, who had planted them originally, he, as far as I know, he didn't use any kind of chemicals or anything either.
Do you get a consistent from year to year fruit set, or do you have some years you're off a little? Yeah,
we do have some years that it's not as good. This year there are quite a few.
Yeah, and it looks like a robust crop.
Yes, it is, but. They're coming on late, probably about 2 weeks later than what they normally come in.
You know, the way I see it, and certainly coming out here at Hidden Valley, these plants are so beautiful and they require so little care. It's like the perfect plant for the homeowner around their landscape.
Yes, it would be. It would be. I'm sure that they're very easy to take care of. Like I say, they very little care you have to take.
Yeah, well, and the fall color is so beautiful as well.
Oh, yeah.
As the leaves turn orange and red, and then that beautiful flower in the spring is so lovely. It's not very large, but it's certainly beautiful.
Not, yeah. But they are pretty, yes.
Well, Don, keep up the great work, and thanks for having us out.
Well, thank you.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah. What's fun about picking blueberries is eating them as you go along. This plant is still loaded. As you can see, I've already filled my bucket up. What's great about blueberries is that there's so many different varieties out there now. The plant hybridizers have been very busy. There's probably over 150 different varieties of blueberries to choose from. So I guarantee you there's one that you can grow in your own garden. What's great about them is that they make such a beautiful shrub, and of course, a delicious berry. Some things you'll want to know if you want to grow blueberries is that they need acidic soil. They need soil that's well drained, and you'll find that they're relatively pest-free. What I'm going to do with these, I'm going to take half of them and I'm going to make a delicious blueberry pie. And the other half I'm going to freeze. And the way I freeze them, I just dump the whole berries like this, unwashed, in a freezer bag and pop them in the freezer. And they'll freeze individually, and you can take them out as many as you want and enjoy them throughout any season. Chance, you finding plenty of blueberries up there?
Yeah.
Aren't they great? It's a lot of fun coming out here and picking blueberries. You know, they're divided into two different categories roughly. You got high bush blueberries and low bush blueberries. And typically you want to, on the high bush ones, you can harvest them every year. On the low bush, you want to alternate the years of picking. Of course, the way I think about blueberries is you just want to mix them up. Have a few high bush, have a few low bush, and mix up the varieties because you can have them coming off at different times of the year or throughout the growing season or the picking season. The main thing is think about diversity. Diversity is a good thing. I don't know about you, but I love blueberries. Just about any way you can serve them. In muffins, ice cream, jam, jellies, whatever. And I love to grow them. What I'm doing here is I'm actually growing some in containers. As a matter of fact, just behind me is a container that I planted last year. I put 4 plants in there and it is loaded with blueberries. Now, one of the things you need to know about growing blueberries is that they really like acidic soil, like azaleas and rhododendrons. You don't want to plant them if you have alkaline soil unless you put them in a container or a raised bed where you can really make sure that the soil is acidic. The other thing you want to do, you need to realize that blueberries ripen over the course of about 2 to 5 weeks. And what I like to do is wait for them to ripen fully on the plant before I pick them. That ensures the best flavor. And secondly, you want to make sure that when you pick them in a shallow bowl, because when they are dead ripe and the most delicious, they're very susceptible to being crushed, so just a few in the bottom of the bowl is the best way to pick them. If you grow them in a container like this, which I recommend, you'll find that they make a beautiful landscape plant, both in the fall and the winter. And you just want to make sure that you're feeding them regularly with an all-purpose liquid fertilizer, and use a soil that is designed for container planting and growing like this. Look at that. And look at all the blueberries already on it. Give it a try. There's so much going on out here at the farm this time of year. We've got squash and tomatoes and all kinds of vegetables and all kinds of activities. It's really a great time. And we also have some of the late season fruits coming on, late blackberries and this particular variety of raspberry. Now this one's called Heritage, and what's special about Heritage is it's considered an ever-bearing raspberry. Now we have another variety here on the farm called Dorman Red, and it's already finished up. We have a long row of them, and that particular variety has to be trestled because the vines are very thin and don't support themselves. But when they're loaded with fruit, it's such a gorgeous picture. Now this variety, Heritage, you can see has very strong canes, so it doesn't have to be trestled, although we do have some wires here that we can run the canes through like this. And what's beautiful about this particular raspberry, beyond the delicious fruit, is that the underside of the leaf has a gorgeous sort of silvery color, which I think is very attractive, particularly when the wind blows across them. Now, if you look a little closer, you can see that there's a lot of berry set that's already forming here. So what's great about this is that we'll be able to enjoy raspberries throughout the summer, and then we get another flush in the fall of fruit. The two varieties that we have here, you might say, which is your favorite? I have to say Heritage is, just from a flavor standpoint. The Dorman Red is a little tart for me, but it's still very good. In the South, there are fewer varieties to choose from that are successful grown in this area. But if you live in the North, you have more varieties of raspberries to choose from. On the Heritage, by fall, they were already producing fruit that first year, whereas with the Dorman Reds, it took them a full year. It was the next year until we started seeing raspberries. Now just look at the fruit set we're already seeing on Heritage here. It won't be long, and these clusters look like little green strawberries will turn into bright red raspberries. And they're so delicious in so many different types of recipes. Who doesn't love fresh blueberries? I certainly love having them in season, but I also like having them on hand throughout the year. So I try to freeze them. And when we have a bumper crop, what we do is we take the blueberries and bring them in, and without even washing them, we just make sure that there aren't any little stems or leaves from the picking in the bowls, and then I just dump them out onto wax paper like this and spread them out evenly on a cookie sheet. And then I can just pop them into the freezer and let them freeze solid. You just want to make sure that they're distributed evenly, and you see by not having any water on them, they're not going to stick together. So once the blueberries are frozen, I can pour them into freezer bags, usually 1 quart size, so it makes it really handy for throwing together a cobbler or a pie. You know, it's really easier to grow blueberries than you might think. In fact, you don't even need a garden because there are dwarf varieties that will thrive in containers. Blueberry shrubs are easy to grow, and there's a type suitable for just about any climate or garden space. However, it is important that they have acidic soil to grow in for the best results. And when choosing blueberries, it's important to recognize that they require a certain amount of chilling time to produce fruits. Northern, high bush, half high, and low bush blueberries are best suited for climates where winters are long and cold. On the other hand, rabbit-eye blueberries hail from the southeastern U.S., so they'll thrive in zones 7 through 9. Southern high-bush blueberries need even less chilling time and will thrive as far south as zone 10. When selecting a variety of blueberry shrub for your garden, there are a few characteristics to consider. For best results, you'll find that blueberries require a companion blueberry plant for pollination to produce berries. This means you'll need to plant at least 2 different varieties, and you'll want to plant those within 100 feet of one another. The reason for this is that blueberries cannot be pollinated by their own self-producing pollen. That's why you need to have a companion nearby. So if you follow a few of these basic tips, you can grow a lot of your own blueberries, and you can enjoy them in, well, every season of the year. I love delicious drinks in the spring, and when our strawberries start coming in and I have lemons, well, this is a perfect combination because what this is a strawberry lemonade recipe. Now what you want to do is you want to start with just a simple syrup. And I'm going to light the stove here, and I'm going to add 2 cups of water. All right, and then I'm adding 1.5 cups of sugar. It's granulated sugar like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow that just to come to a boil. And while that's going on, I'm going to take one of these lemons, and what you want is about a tablespoon of the zest of lemon. Just want to make sure that you get this. It adds a little bit of bite to the drink, which is kind of nice. All right, and then what I'm going to do is add 1 cup of lemon juice. It's already heating up nicely here, but what I've done ahead of time is gone ahead and made the same batch here, and it's cooled off. So what you want to do is allow this to come to a boil, let it stop, let it cool just as we have here, and then what I'm going to do is take the strawberries, which what we have here is a pint. I've capped these strawberries, split them in half. I'm going to put them in the food processor here. Now you want to make sure that this gets really juicy, and these are nice juicy berries. There we go. That ought to be just about right. What we're ready to do here is take this blend of sugar and water and lemon, and I'm going to pour it through a strainer just to catch some of that pulp. See there? I call it the pulp. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add strawberries. Just like that. Look at that color. Isn't that gorgeous? I want to make sure I get every bit of strawberry out of there because I love strawberries. Here we go. The finishing touch is to take 2 cups of sparkling water. When you're ready to serve to guests, this will give it just a little bit of fizz and sparkle. And I love to serve this on ice with a touch of fresh mint out of the garden. It's very refreshing. Give it a try. Welcome to my design studio. Today we've got an interesting house in Pennsylvania, and Ryan has just moved into it and now ready to make some improvements to the landscape. I've got some suggestions here. It's a handsome traditional house. I think that I would start here in the foreground, and with these trees, if we kept this group of trees, what I would do is limb them up and take all this small growth and get it way up, because right now it just looks overgrown. And then what I would do is think about taking and creating a bed that might sweep around like this, and do a woodland garden here, Ryan, where you might add a dogwood tree here and maybe even another dogwood tree here in the foreground, and then underplant this whole side all the way across here. You'd leave a path to break through here. Let me just add this. You want to be able to come through a path and come around to the side of the house. But this could be just a mass planting of azaleas and rhododendrons, and you could have in the foreground here, you could have a ground cover like Vinca minor, the little periwinkle, and coming up through that Vinca minor could be all kinds of bulbs, which would be very beautiful here. Now let's take a look at the front of the house, because it's a formal house. What I would do away with are these shrubs, so we need to get rid of this. We just need to start fresh. And what I would do is come in with something a little more formal, like a yew here, a yew here, and one here, and replace these with a denser evergreen, you see, and a yew here on this side, and then underplant here with fern. Just a very low, deep bed of just a nice native fern, like cinnamon fern or royal fern. And then I would like to see you have a path that comes straight across the front of the house and create more of an open patio, a terrace, as wide as the door is here, where guests could gather. And this would be nice if it could be done in stone. And then maybe there's a pair of urns that could go on the corners here, like this. And then along the front, you could do a boxwood hedge along the front of this path that would run across here, and then come across to this point, to the corner of the house, you see. Then you would have this opening that would give you a reveal to the front door. You'd have this boxwood hedge on either side, and then the bed across the front. The fern would be in the back, but you could fill that with all kinds of annuals. You could, in the spring, you could plant maybe pale pink impatiens, or if you got more sun out there, you could do something like petunias, where the whole path is lined all the way across. Just a few ideas. I hope that's helpful to you, Ryan. Good luck. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I hope you've been inspired to populate your entire landscape with all kinds of berry-producing plants. You'll be glad you did. Until next time, from the Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. More information about today's topic and other topics covered in this series can be found at plansmith.com.